Tonight, facing the Dealmakers is Williams Corporation Managing Director, Blair Chappell.
Blair, hi, welcome to The Deal.
Thank you, Ed. Great to be here.
Now, Blair, we know you're going to be pitching an Auckland development today, but before we get into that, talk to us a little bit about Williams Corporation. How long have you guys been operating for?
Well, it's our 10th year in business this year. We've been developing for 7 years, and as of today, we're the 5th largest residential developer in New Zealand.
And how are you feeling about your pitch today to the Dealmakers?
I'm excited. We've got a great project, great location, good typology with mix of housing, so no, I'm looking forward to see what they have to say.
And what have you been doing to prepare for this pitch today?
Oh, I just know the information. I've been through the information pack. We designed it from scratch, so I like to think I can answer any questions.
And what's at stake for you and Williams Corporation here today?
Well, it's like anything. It's important to get the brand out there, get the product to good buyers, whether that's owner-occupiers or investors. But just sort of the more people that support us, the more that we can produce to the marketplace.
Fantastic, Blair. We appreciate you coming here on The Deal. I wish you the best of luck with the Dealmakers, and I'll let you go up.
Thank you, Ed.
A calm and collected start from one of the largest developers in the country. But can he remain calm in front of the three discerning Dealmakers? Let's find out.
Hello, Dealmakers. My name's Blair Chappell. I'm the Managing Director of Williams Corporation. Now, before I show you this exciting project we have that we want you to do a deal with, first I think it's important to talk about the business, Williams Corporation. We've been in business for coming up 10 years. We've been developing for 7. We build homes that are affordable to buy, affordable to live in, and affordable to maintain, where you can live, work, and play. And based on building consents issued, we're now the 5th largest residential builder in the country. I'd just like to give you an information booklet, and then I'll reveal the covers and walk you through the development.
Thanks, man. Thanks for that.
So what you can see here is a beautiful development located in Te Atatū Peninsula. So this is located about 12 kilometres from the Auckland CBD at a nice seaside suburb. The great thing about this development, located at 59 to 61 Matapo Road, is it's located next to a park. We have a typology with a mix of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom townhouses, all on fee simple titles and all with a car park. As you can see from the design of the building, we have 2 different designs, one for the street facade and then another design for the rear of the development. We have things like a very safe building envelope. We don't do internal gutters. We always do sophites. We don't put high-risk elements on the building where we don't need to. And we also use very low-maintenance claddings. So this is a brick which is imported from Italy, and this is an aluminium weatherboard made from Orich aluminium right here in New Zealand. The price point for this product is our 1 beds start from $675,000, our 2 beds start from $800,000, and our 3 bedrooms from $950,000. Based on our rental appraisals, the yields expected can be between 3.9 to 4.1%. Te Atatū Peninsula is a very diverse suburb, but 68% of the suburb is made up of 3 or less people in the household, which means that these products, being 1, 2 and 3 bedroom, cater to the majority of the marketplace. Also, with the current low interest rates, with a 3.9% gross yield, the properties should provide reasonably great cash flow and also unimpacted by the new government announcement of the interest tax deductibility rules. I welcome any questions. I look forward to doing a deal with you.
A well-rehearsed pitch from the developer and a nervous wait while the Dealmakers crunch the numbers and find the facts. Will they stack up? Or will they miss their mark?
Hi Blair, I'm Slade. Thanks very much for your presentation. Very well prepared. I'd like to talk a little bit about the construction, which you touched on. You mentioned you import the brick from Italy. What's the reasonings around that, Blair?
The reason for that, I think we definitely want our developments to always look different. We don't want to have cookie cutter housing throughout what we build. The reason we use the Italian brick is it's what's called a reclaimed brick, where it looks like a 100-year-old brick that you would have seen in an old Italian villa, but it's actually made brand new, and Italy is the only country that can produce that product that we know of and source it to New Zealand.
And in terms of cost, on a cost ratio to a locally bought brick?
It's more than double the price. Pretty much everything you see in this development will be either above the building code requirements or there'll be substantially cheaper options if we chose to use them.
Right, okay. And you've mentioned you've been, Williams Corp been in business for 10 years and developing for 7. Do you have much information around the resale market on your products?
Yes, that's a very intelligent question. I think over our career, it's hard to keep track of every resale, but I'd say it'd be reasonably accurate that we've had less than 15 resales across our entire career of selling property. which I think is one, a testament to the product, and two, of those resales, as far as where more or less every customer's made money on the exit of their property.
Okay. When you talk about Te Atatū, you mentioned that it was quite a diverse suburb. Are you concerned about the gentrification, the very intense gentrification that's happening by other developers in the suburb, and how that's going to affect your product down the line when there's not just one development, there's 100 developments in Te Atatū?
I think if anything, it's a positive thing. Like the average house in Te Atatū, say 1950s, 60s, generally needs a lot of maintenance, generally isn't well looked after. There are some examples of nicer properties in the suburb, but the general demographic of housing is in need for redevelopment. And if anything, intensification increases the rate intake for that suburb, so the council can hopefully spend more money on infrastructure, parks, playgrounds, things that encourage people to live, work and play there. And at the same time, if anything, the tenants or the owner occupiers of these homes will be surrounded by very similar demographic and like-minded individuals.
Is it close to public transport? Because if you have a full house, we have 49 potential people there and we only have 14 car parks. Do the owners of these properties have access, or the tenants have access to public transport? Is that close by?
Yes, so Te Atatū isn't serviced by a train station, but it does have bus routes. And also Te Atatū Peninsula feeds directly onto the northwestern motorway. And through the use of bus lanes does give a reasonably direct route straight through to the CBD in Auckland.
Okay, thank you, Blair.
Thank you, Slade.
The project appears to be constructed on solid foundations, but how will the developer fare under the gaze of the Queen of Mean, Linda Forsyth?
Hi Blair, I'm Linda. I just have a question around healthy homes. You'll be aware that the government have brought in healthy home standards that all rental properties have to meet, and I'm just wanting to know, do you guarantee these properties will meet those standards?
Yes, I'll give you a little bit of a long answer because we're quite proud of how we build our houses. So short answer, yes, they do comply. Long answer, we always go over and above the building code requirements. So we use an R2.8 bat in the wall, where the building code only calls for a 2.4. And then we also do an R7.2 ceiling bat, where I believe in Auckland the building code calls for an R3. And also in the 2 and 3 beds, instead of doing one heat pump, we put 2 heat pumps in. One to help heating and cooling the house, but also for those upper level bedrooms, it's important to be able to cool the house down in the summertime.
Do these properties come with appliances?
Yes, so they come with a washer, dryer, a microwave, a fridge, and then a full dish drawer, oven, hob, and range hood. And they even come with a heated toilet seat.
Okay. So who do you see as your target tenant? What would be the demographic of the people living in these properties?
And in my opinion, for the 3-bedroom homes, it'd be likely a young couple or newlyweds that have either had their first child or expecting their first child. For the 2-bedroom home, I'd either expect sort of 2 single people that just like living together and want to share the cost of rent, or maybe a young couple that like having a bit more space and a spare room. And then for the 1-bedroom property, I think it's nice that there's a lot more people wanting to live alone, and I think there needs to be more options for that. And I think the 1-bedroom in the suburbs really provides a more affordable outcome for an individual or someone that's also in a relationship but just wants a cheaper overall rent per week.
Okay. As you'll be aware, investors are really worried about vacancy rates. How do you ensure that the rental assessments that you're actually providing are going to make sure that those vacancy rates are as short as they possibly can be?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the good thing is we've developed multiple properties in Te Atatū Peninsula. So I think one, we've given the local agents experience in our product in this current marketplace, where previously there was generally more family homes as opposed to terrace homes, whereas now there's actual data which they can rely on of historical rentals. And also we know we're good developers and good builders, but we know we're not necessarily good property managers. So for every property we sell, we generally go to 3 independent people and get 3 independent rent appraisals, give all of that information to our purchasers, and they can decide whether they prefer to use the higher approach or the lower approach when assessing their risk appetite and cash flow and what they're looking to purchase.
Thank you.
Hi Blair, I'm Andrew. A few questions. The bricks. Obviously with COVID at the moment, there's lots of delays on building materials, and the bricks coming from Italy, whilst they're a nice product and they appear to be give a really good aesthetic view of the property, how's it going to affect your timeline for delivery?
Yeah, great question. So we have very standard colour schemes. We have about 12 different ones, and we forecast for all of our suppliers roughly 12 months worth of what we are building, what is coming up. because of Auckland's council long lead times for resource consents, which takes about 5 to 7 months, we're actually ordering the bricks and paying our deposit roughly 7 months before they're needed on site. And also with bricks, there is also the ability to substitute, where worst case scenario, if there was a big delay because of COVID, we could go to the clients and say, here's a scenario, we can either delay the job 4 weeks, or here's the closest substitute we can find in the local market. But to date, we've had very little impact from the COVID issues in the supply chain.
So you've had no major impact so far?
No, I think if you're a smaller developer, you'll be likely having issues. But I think because of the size of our account and our long-standing relationships with our suppliers and contractors, we've come out with very little issues.
So let's just talk about the size of the company. So you said the 5th largest based on consents in New Zealand at the moment?
Correct.
Which is huge. How many sort of properties do you expect to deliver per year now?
So last financial year just finished, we delivered 344 and sold 720. And in this financial year, we'll deliver over 800, or say between 750 and 800, based on consenting and delivery timeframes.
And your delivery times on average?
So on average, we allow 6 months for consenting, 6 months for construction. Sometimes we do projects in as fast as 10 months from start to finish, and sometimes it might be as low as 15, usually based around consent, not necessarily delivery.
And in the 7 years you've been developing, how many properties do you expect that you've actually built so far?
Great question. I should know the numbers off the top of my head, but I don't, but it's probably over 700 to 900 in that proximity.
And you're expecting that only about 15 of those have been resold in that time?
Yes.
Okay. Which is quite unusual given that Kiwis probably hold a property for 7 years on average.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also we generally like to sort of talk about the merits of property investment as a long-term investment. We don't necessarily like people that essentially go, I want to buy this and sell it when it's complete, because then if we sell 100 homes off the plan a year to those sorts of people, all of a sudden we're in a space where we're competing with our own clients.
My follow-up question to that then is, how many of these are sold to investors and how many are owner-occupiers, generally speaking?
Do you want pre-COVID numbers or current
Let's
numbers?
go current.
Yeah, so current numbers in Auckland would be probably 65% investors and 35% owner-occupiers.
And how's the government's changes affected you so far?
Current issue is currently keeping up with demand for the product. I think there is a little degree of uncertainty in the market because of what the government could do. I think sometimes uncertainty is worse than actually making a decision. But as far as the current policies announced, we've seen increased sales more or less every single month since the start of this year.
Does it concern you that the government could say that new builds are exempt, but then they're going to transition out the interest deductibility over 4 years, the same as a property purchased prior to the 27th of March?
I don't think it worries me so much. If it happens, it happens. If you look at New Zealand average house price, it's very hard to figure out what interest rates were, who was in government when LVR rules came and when they were removed, because the graph, even though it does go up and down, generally long-term trends one way, and it is a basic fundamental supply and demand issue, not necessarily what is the interest rate or the interest deductibility policy at the time.
And how's your company ownership structure work?
So company ownership, we have one main development company, Williams Corporation, which is the main brand, owned by myself and my business partner, Matthew Horncastle. And then we have various trading companies that we complete developments in. The reason we do that, and they're not development-specific companies, they're funder-specific companies, because we deal with all major New Zealand banks, and each bank more or less wants their own company with their own security, but then all the warranties and guarantees are still collectively owned by the main Williams Corporation brand.
And how does that work for a building company that's completing the build yourself, or do you have your own builders?
So we contract out the build, but not as a head contract. So we'll find the plumber, find the sparky, find the builder, etc. And the reason we do that is, one, we can control quality, and two, also generally we use the same contractors over and over again. So you get really good economies of scale once they've built several developments for us.
One of your comments before was about using a product which is more expensive, and that all the components of this build that we'll see here are more expensive. How does that lend itself to an investment? Why do you think this is still a good investment despite using more expensive materials? Because I assume the end user pays for that.
It's a little bit of both. I think one is we do have the good buying power. Two, we don't let clients change any of our homes, so that enables us to have even greater buying power. So generally we like to think we can buy a better product for the same price as a smaller developer. And two, I'm a big believer in, you can have a great house as far as internally, as far as the taps, the tiles, but behind the walls can be very cheap and low grade from an engineering and building code perspective. So I think it's more about building a product that's going to last long term and not give issues, as opposed to going, it's got a great kitchen tap and a great bench top, this must be a great home. There's actually a lot more to a great development, more than just what the inside looks like visually.
And so obviously you're growing. What are your projections for the next 3 years?
It's hard to say. I think the market generally dictates the volume that the business will do. Based on current sales, we're selling between 70 to 110 homes a month. So theoretically, if we're selling sort of 1,000 homes a year, we'll be delivering 1,000 homes the following year. But I think our end goal in New Zealand is sort of around that 1,500 a year, which is still only representing about 5% of the New Zealand market.
And how do your prices compare to your competitors?
I think in Te Atatū Peninsula is quite a niche wee suburb where there aren't a huge amount of competitors. It's like anything in the industry, you can go on Trade Me and find people that are cheaper than us, and then go on Trade Me and find people that are more expensive than us. But if anything, we're like any business, we have our price, have our margin, that's what we sell it for. We don't necessarily get caught up in either get into a bidding war or trying to achieve the highest price for that suburb.
And one of the things I've noticed is you guys fund your developments through a investment fund. Tell us about that, and does that affect the stability of your company?
Yeah, so if anything, I'd say it would affect the stability of the company in a positive way. So we've got our own wholesale investment company called Williams Corporation Capital, where we take wholesale investor funds, give them security over the company and the projects, and that essentially enables us, one, to build more homes, and two, to deliver it in a safer manner. In the sense of the money's sitting in an account right now, whereas if we wanted to start this tomorrow, we could go and build the whole thing.
Thanks, Blair.
The Dealmakers must now weigh up what they've heard and determine whether the project should be offered to mum and dad property investors. Remember, for the project to proceed, 2 out of the 3 Dealmakers must give their approval. With the final numbers run, it's time to hear their decision.
Blair, thank you very much for a very polished and prepared presentation. The history of the Williams Corp and your projected numbers are very impressive. Due to what our investors have available on the market at the moment, 3 bedrooms with the garage, today there will be no deal for me.
Thank you, Slade.
Thank you for your presentation today, Blair. I think your design is sharp, the location is really convenient. I think that your rental assessments are bang on, and for that reason, I'd like to do a deal.
Thank you, Linda.
Blair, the great part about Auckland, as you know, is that it's got superior growth rate to most other parts of New Zealand, which makes the return on investment a lot better, but the cash flow often a lot worse. Using the lower end of your rental assessments to be conservative, the 1 bedroom and the 3 bedrooms don't work for me. The 1 bedroom's contribution will be about $90 a week, and the 3 beds closer to 110 over 15 years, allowing for interest rate increases. But the expected growth over 15 years at 6% is close to $900,000 for the 2 bed, and at $81 a week contribution, allowing for all the unexpected costs, residents association, vacancy, maintenance. That makes a great investment at about 380% ROI. What I'd like to do is get a bit of extra for our investors though. A 10% deposit for 12 months is going to cost them an interest. Would you look at doing a 5% deposit?
We can take a 5% deposit if they give us proof of settlement funds, or 5% deposit with the balance 5% on construction starting.
So just so I get this right, if they give you 5% cash withdrawn from the bank, and then they give you a letter of offer for the remainder 95%, you do that deal.
Correct.
In that case, I'd like to do a deal on the 2-bed units. We have a deal.
We have a deal.
Well done, Blair.
Thank you. Well done, Blair. Thank you, Slade. Thank you, Linda.
And with a bit of negotiation from the Prince of Property, the deal is done. Let's find out how Blair is feeling.
Blair, congratulations
Thank you,
on
Ed.
doing a deal with the Dealmakers. How do you feel your pitch went?
I think it went really well. I think they asked very intelligent questions. Fortunately, I had the answers and came well prepared, but I think all up, got to be happy with the deal being made.
It was a very polished pitch, and with that deal being made now, that's going to mean that investors around New Zealand are going to have access to these properties with the Dealmakers stamp of approval. Now, once we get the Matapo Road out of the way, what's next for you and Williams Corporation?
I think it's just a lot more of the same. We just listen to the market, understand what the market wants, then try to replicate that sort of as much as we can to fill the demand.
And Slade gave you a bit of a tough time around those 3-bed properties without the garage. What do you feel about that?
I think it's one of those things where a lot of garages I've seen never really have a car in them. The 3 bedrooms have a car park. The car parks come with an EV charger. So I think it's one of those things of balancing value and price. And yes, we could add garages, but it would come at a cost to the client.
You seemed very confident within there. Were there any butterflies underneath?
I think you always get nervous when you're presenting to a degree of people, but I think if you're confident and know what you're talking about, then generally the nerves aren't really there.
Thanks again, Blair, for coming here today on The Deal. We wish you the best of luck in the future.
Thank you, Ed. It's been a real pleasure.